Well, it's 2021 and quite a bit has happened already. Some good things, some bad things, but one thing that's worth noting is that a lot of businesses are still closed, and this includes theme parks, like Disneyland, for example. Now, I'm sure most Disney fans are doing perfectly fine. Well, I mean, the laid off cast members are probably not doing as fine, but I want to do something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and that is a ranking of every Disneyland ride. Now, when I say every Disneyland ride, I don't mean every Disneyland ride that has ever existed. Like, obviously, some of them opened and closed before I was even born, so I never rode those. And some of them I don't even remember riding if it was like a long time ago. So for this ranking, I'm gonna only include the rides that currently exist in the Disneyland park. And I'm only doing the Disneyland park. I'm not doing California Adventure. I'm gonna give it its own separate video. I'm probably gonna wait until the Spider-Man ride opens because I really want to include that ride. It looks cool. And keep in mind, I'm only including the rides, so no Enchanted Tiki Room or Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln or any of the shows. And also, I don't consider the Main Street vehicles as rides. They're more like transportation and not very good ones. Like, you just ride through Main Street. It's not very exciting. Anyway, let's get started with this ranking. While I think most rides at Disneyland are worth riding at least once, there is one ride that I think you can just easily skip even if this is your first and only time visiting the park. And that ride is unfortunately Autopia. And honestly, like, this ride is just boring. It gives kids the idea of what it's like to be a driver in a way. Like, I have no problem with that idea, but again, it just offers nothing interesting. You just ride around on a car that's on a track, and the smell of gas fumes is just unbearable, and there's not even anything interesting to look at. The awesome decorations don't really add much to the ride. I mean, I understand that Honda is their sponsor, but they're just there, and they're not really that great. This ride isn't awful. Like, there are worse rides out there, but this is one that's just kind of a waste of space and a waste of time to ride, and something that you can just easily skip. From one Tomorrowland ride to another is Astral Orbiter. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you have seen this ride. I mean, obviously, it's kind of hard to miss. It's right smack in front of the entrance of Tomorrowland. But it's just a basic spinner. Again, nothing interesting, and it's fun for kids. Not so much for adults though. Like, I remember riding it last time, and my legs were in pain after riding it. It's basically just a spinner ride where you fly around a rocket ship, and I don't know. Like, you basically already have the Dumbo ride in Fantasyland. That I think is better, and I'll get to that later. But this one, I don't know. You could take it or leave it. Like, it doesn't really need to exist, but it's still fun for kids. But honestly, for me and for adults, I just don't really think it's worth riding. Oh, this is gonna be one that everyone will disagree with me on. Yeah, this is a fan favorite ride. A lot of people consider it a must ride and an absolute classic. And yeah, prepare to hate me for this. Just warning, it's a small world. Now, I get what this ride's intentions are. Like, it wants to bring all these cultures together. Like, it's showing how the world is diverse, and I think that's a great concept. I have no problems with that. But it's just too cheesy for me. Like, with the singing dolls singing the same thing, like, the song is just really annoying, and it just moves too slow. Like, it feels like you're in there for forever. I don't know. Like, yeah, I see the appeal of it. I have no problem with people loving it. I understand why people love it, but it's just not for me. And then, like, years ago, they added Disney characters to it for some reason, and they don't improve or ruin the ride in any way. They're just there. Like, I mean, come on, we got Alice in Wonderland and Pinocchio, Mulan. Wait, Mulan's in this ride? You know, maybe I should move this all the way up to number 1. Anyway, I understand its popularity. It's just not my kind of thing. Number 30 is King Arthur's Carousel. It's just a carousel. Doesn't really stand out from other carousels. Yeah, that's about it. Toontown, a small land tucked away in the corner of Fantasyland next to It's a Small World and only contains 2 rides. Well, there's going to be a 3rd ride coming, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which isn't open yet. But, I mean, I know it's already at Disney World, but I haven't been on the one at Disney World, but that will change soon enough. Anyway, one of the rides in Toontown is a small roller coaster meant for children, and that's Gadget's Go Coaster. You know, even as an adult, I actually kind of enjoy this ride to an extent. I ride it sometimes just because it's fun. This is something that I think can be enjoyed by anyone. Yeah, I know it's short, but it's still kind of fun. And it works as a great warm-up coaster for children, like to prepare them for the big coasters. Sometimes the line can be long and it's not something I think is worth waiting such a long time for, but it's still pretty fun. The first Fantasyland dark ride on this list is Snow White's Scary Adventures. Now, I know they're currently working on an updated version of this ride, but because that hasn't opened yet, I'm gonna talk about the pre-updated version. Of all the Fantasyland dark rides, this one I think is easily the weakest. Now, that isn't to say that it's bad. No, I like this ride. I think the sets look cool, some of the effects are cool, but my biggest problem with it is it focuses too much on the evil queen. Like, I mean, I get it. It's called Snow White's Scary Adventures, but it seems like it focuses too much on the creepy aspect. Like, I don't know why they are putting Snow White's name in the title. Like, it doesn't even feel like a Snow White ride. It just feels like an evil queen ride. Like, you only see Snow White like one time. Well, like one time in like live form, and then like in a mural at the end. And dwarfs are like in 2 scenes, but other than that, it doesn't really feel like Snow White. It just kind of just feels like an evil queen ride, and yeah, the creepy aspects are effective. I think it does its job really well, but again, just it kind of gets boring, like just like having to like go through this like dark forest and just seeing evil queen pop up in certain areas. Again, this isn't a bad ride. I ride it a lot, but it's just they could have done more with it. I'm holding out hope that the updated version is better than this. I mean, from what I've seen, that looks like it'll fix some of the problems I have. But for right now, it's fine. We all live in a yellow submarine. Sorry. Number 27 is Finding Nemo's Submarine Voyage. Now, when there's a ride based on a movie, usually it's either a summary of a movie, or it takes place sometime after the movie, or is just its own thing entirely. Well, in this case, it takes place after the movie, but is still kind of a summary of the movie. Yeah, they acknowledge the events that happened in the movie, and this ride, Nemo is here, but like this time he goes off on an adventure with Squirt, and basically they just do the exact same things that Marlin and Dory did in the movie. So basically it's just this whole here we go again kind of thing. Now, the ride itself looks beautiful. I love the undersea environments, and even the projections of the characters look cool, but it just still feels like that. It just feels like that they wanted to replace Submarine Voyage with a popular movie, and Finding Nemo was their best decision. This also isn't a great ride if you're claustrophobic, because you're in a tiny submarine and it's kind of cramped in there. It's just like not really a good feeling if you don't like those kinds of things. I also want to talk about how much Dory's voice bothers me in this. Now, it's clear that they couldn't afford Ellen DeGeneres to record a few lines for this ride, so they had to get someone else to do it. But she sounds nothing like Ellen.
I know it's you. It could be anybody.
It's not anyone. It's me.
Do I know you?
Dory!
Talk about a small world. My name's Dory too.
Again, it's a decent ride, just not anything special. Get ready for dad jokes to ride. I mean, Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise is a pretty enjoyable ride, like with this whole environment of like the whole jungle setting, and like even the animals. Like I mean, the animatronics are kind of dated, but they still have a special charm to them and still look pretty good for what they are. Though to complete the experience is the cast member acting as the skipper who's driving the boat. Like the puns that the cast members just do are just very funny. Yeah, the jokes are kind of the same each time, but it's the delivery that makes the jokes feel fresh, and that's just what I think is the best thing about this ride. The cast members are clearly having a fun time with this, and that alone just makes it worth riding. Now, there are some controversial moments that can be seen, but thankfully they're going to be changing those scenes. I'm just glad that they're not doing any kind of update to like reference the movie that's coming out. Well, I mean, if it's successful, they might do that, but who knows. For now, I'm glad they're not focusing on that. I really hope that movie is good, by the way. The trailers make it look good. There's not a lot of good movies based on rides. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean is an exception, but hopefully this changes that. This next one is another boat ride, and that's Storybook Land. Now, this one doesn't really get that much attention. I mean, not a lot of people really know it exists, but maybe the people who do know it exists probably just mostly remember the giant monstro head at the beginning. But I still think it's enjoyable enough. Like, it's not amazing. It's like not grand. It's like not really giving most of the other rides any kind of competition. Like, it's not like one of the best or anything, but I just love seeing all these miniature models. They just look really nice. I think it just looks beautiful. I just love these movies and I love seeing these little set pieces based on them. I honestly don't think this ride gets as much credit as it deserves. So I already talked about Astral Orbiter, but now it's time to talk about the other spinning ride, Dumbo the Flying Elephant. Now, you're probably wondering why I consider this better than Astral Orbiter and why I have it much higher on this list. Well, the thing is, I just think it's better themed. Plus, the surrounding area just really makes it feel like a better fit. I don't know what it is. It's just the idea of like riding around on elephants in Fantasyland. There's just some kind of magic to it, and it's kind of hard to explain, but I just really get a feeling of magic when riding this ride. I mean, it's not like anything great or whatever, but it's still a lot of fun. More fun than Astral Orbiter. Yeah, it's not particularly amazing, but it's a lot more satisfying in my opinion. Number 23 is Casey Jr.'s Circus Train. It's another Dumbo ride and located right next to the other Dumbo ride. This ride's a lot of fun, and as a Dumbo fan, I just love hearing the Casey Jr. music. It gives me a lot of nostalgia, and just the feel of like riding in a circus train. It's such a great feeling. Honestly, there's not much I could say about it. It's just a lot of fun. This next one, in my opinion, is probably the most underrated ride in the park. And that is the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, located in Crater Country next to Splash Mountain and is almost completely ignored. Yeah, every time I go on it, there's almost no line, it's practically a walk-on, and I never understood why. I mean, it's Winnie the Pooh, you can't go wrong with Winnie the Pooh. This ride really does him justice. Yeah, there's not a strong story, but Winnie the Pooh isn't really known for having a strong story. It's just very simple, and it's just great seeing all these characters. I think all the animatronics and scenery just looks amazing. Really feels like you're in 100 Acre Wood. I especially love the Hefflump and Woozle scene. Sorry, I can't say that, but it's just really great to look at. And I love the motion of like the vehicles bobbing up and down. Honestly, this ride really deserves more love. I just really love riding it every time, and it's definitely underrated. Really recommend it if you ever go there. So next up is one of the two ships that you can take a ride on the rivers of America. The first one on this list is the sailing ship COLombia, which is a replica of the actual COLombia ship. When riding this, it really feels like you're on a ship. Like there's an actual working cannon that the cast member fires. There's even a museum on the bottom that I think is very interesting. And the Rivers of America scenery itself just looks amazing, like with the Indians and the animals. There's a lot to look at, and it's just so enjoyable to experience. And now we move on to the other ship, the Mark Twain River boat. Yeah, pretty much what I said about the sailing ship COLombia also kind of applies here, like with the whole like Rivers of America scenery and stuff. But this one, I feel like is more relaxing. Like you just sit down and take in the views and the sounds, and and this is why I prefer it over sailing ship COLombia. It's just more relaxed and more easygoing, and it's great to ride if you just want to chill for a few minutes. It's definitely the better of the two Rivers of America ships. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the canoes are not on this list. I don't consider them rides, they're activities. But if they were on this list, they would be dead last. Mad Tea Party is fun. Okay, so number 18 is Pure Pants Fight, but I'm gonna level with you. As high as it is on this list, I kind of have mixed emotions about it. Like, I mean, technically it is a great ride. It's it's worth riding, definitely. I think it looks beautiful. I just love the feeling of flying over London and over Neverland. And yeah, the animatronics haven't really aged well all that much, but they still look good in their own right. But the problem I have is the line. Yeah, the line is just always so long, and I don't know why. God, seriously, this ride is like what, like 2 minutes or whatever, and the line is usually around like 40, 50 minutes to an hour or so. Like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I understand why people want to ride it, but is it really worth waiting that long for it? I mean, I don't. I mean, like, I'm just curious, like, why this ride of all rides? Sometimes it gets longer lines than Space Mountain. Admittedly, I just don't understand that. I mean, yeah, I understand so many people like to ride it, but again, it just makes me laugh. Yeah, but honestly, if you want to ride it, I highly suggest try to get there a rope drop and just like go straight to this ride, because usually the line is shorter in the morning, and yeah, it gets longer, but yeah, it's like it starts out shorter at the beginning of the day. But honestly, as great as it is, I don't think it's really worth waiting that long for, honestly. This ride, seriously. This seems like a good time to play a certain Simpsons song, but because I don't want to get copyright strikes, I'm not going to play it, so just imagine that it's playing here anyway. Number 17 is the Monorail. Now, I know I said I wouldn't technically put transportation on here, like the Main Street vehicles, but even though the monorail technically is transportation, like going to downtown Disney from Tomorrowland and vice versa, I still consider it an actual ride. You can look out the window and see the views. Like when you're entering Disneyland, like you see the entrance of both Disneyland and California Adventure, and as you're going in, you see Fantasyland, and I just think that alone makes it worth going on. It seems like kind of a stretch to put this one on the list, but it's my list, so who cares? Pinocchio is the most traumatizing movie Disney has put out, and this ride really shows that. Personally, I think this ride is scarier than the Snow White ride. Honestly, this should have been called Pinocchio's Scary Adventure. It's a summary of the movie, but a really good one. Like, it still makes you feel uncomfortable seeing these kids turning into donkeys. There's a lot of great scenes, like the Pleasure Island scene, and especially the part with Monstro. That actually used to scare me as a kid. But one thing I have to ask is, why is Pinocchio still a puppet at the end? I've seen the movie multiple times, and I'm pretty sure he turns into a real boy at the end. But at the end of this ride, he's still wooden. Like, what's up with that? Did the Blue Fairy just rip him off? Man, the Blue Fairy is a total bitch. Before the update, Alice in Wonderland probably would have been slightly lower on this list, but the projections just improve it a lot, in my opinion. The projections blend very well with the physical props, and the physical props themselves look great as well. It really captures that whimsical feeling of being in Wonderland, like with the flowers, the caterpillar. It's just so great. There's only one part that takes me out of it though, and that's the part where you go outside after the Queen of Hearts has her little temper tantrum. I don't see what the point of that is. It kind of just puts the ride to a pause. And then you go back inside where you see the Mad Hatter having a tea party with Alice. And if you've seen the movie, you know that happens earlier in the film, like before the whole Queen of Hearts stuff. Like, I'm not sure how we went from Queen of Hearts having a tantrum to a tea party. Like, I don't know, it just seems kind of weird to me. Another little nitpick I want to point out is during the Queen of Hearts scene, the king says this line.
The rule 42, the queen always wins.
This line bothers me because anyone who has seen the movie would know that Rule 32 is all persons over a mile high must leave the courtroom immediately. I know I should separate the movie from the ride, but I just love the movie so much that little things like this just kind of bother me. I don't know, it's a habit. Next on the list is Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, the only ride that ends with you going to hell. But anyway, this ride is just bonkers and in the best way possible. Like, you almost get hit by a train, you ride over a bumpy road, you end up in court. There's a lot going on, and it's not even a thrill ride. It's hard to make a slow-moving ride seem thrilling, but this ride manages to do that. It's just throwing so many things at you. It's just a lot of fun. This ride doesn't use traditional animatronics, it uses cardboard cutouts, but they still look really good because it really gives you that feeling that this is a cartoon, and I think that's what they're going for, and it works really well. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride really lives up to its name. It is just so crazy and so good. Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters is a shooting interactive ride where you help Buzz Lightyear defeat Zurg and his evil forces. The thing I admire the most about this ride is the amount of detail. There's a lot to shoot at and everything has a different design. It makes it all the more exciting. This ride is basically just one big game. You shoot at things, you earn points, you get a certain level. There's even ways of getting more points, but it is a really fun game and it's great to ride this with someone and try to see which one could get the higher score. I often get a lower score than the person I'm riding with. That's why I ride alone, so I can always get the higher score. When the ride ends and you see Buzz Lightyear congratulating you, it just gives you a good feeling. Like you helped him defeat Zurg. It's just so satisfying. I should also probably address this. Now, this ride is an omnimover attraction, which means that the vehicles constantly move, except for the times when it stops to board handicapped people. But so technically, the line should be faster than it actually is. But the thing is, it also has a fast pass line, and because of that, the line is slower than it should be. So I'm just wondering what the point is. What's the point of the fast pass line? Now, without the fast pass line, the standby line would be around like 5 to 10 minutes or something. But with the fast pass line, the standby line is longer than it should be. So I don't think the ride needs a fast pass line, and I'm not sure why it's there, but I seem to be the only one who has a problem with it. I haven't heard anyone else complaining about this, so maybe it's just me, but it's just something that bothers me. Coming at number 12 is the wildest ride in the wilderness. That's terrible. It's Big Thunder Mountain. I don't have much to say about it. It's just a fun ride with a Wild West village and explosions and a goat carrying dynamite. It's a crazy roller coaster. It's kind of intense a little bit, but it's a lot of fun and just a great time. Matterhorn is another one I don't really have much to say about. It's just an expertly themed roller coaster and a very bumpy one, I might add. I'm sure some of you might like get back pains from it. I know I have, but regardless of that, it's very cool. I love the Abominable Snowman animatronics. I also love that build up at the beginning when you're going up that first lift hill and like you hear the sounds of the Abominable Snowman. It really lets you know what you're about to experience, and it's just really cool. I love it. Well, now we've entered the top 10 best Disneyland rides, and which ride starts it off? Well, this is kind of a controversial choice, but I'm gonna have to say Splash Mountain. Now, regardless of the movie that this is based on, and I'm not even gonna bother mentioning it because it's really bad, and I highly suggest you don't watch it ever. Just don't. But yeah, regardless of it, I think this is a really fun ride. I just love the atmosphere to it. I love the animatronics. I love the drops. Like, yeah, there's that one big drop at the end, but my favorite drop in this is the one that's indoors and like you go down and then up, and it catches me off guard every time. It's just sad this had to be themed to such a terrible, controversial, racist movie. It's a good thing they're turning it into a Princess and the Frog ride in the future. Hopefully that's great, because this ride really deserves to have an actual good movie tied to it, honestly. But again, despite what movie it's based on, it's still really great. Next up is an absolute fan favorite, and that is Haunted Mansion. I have never met anyone who hates this ride or even dislikes it. Pretty much everyone who has gone on it has said that they really like it, and I don't blame them. It is just really cool. Disney managed to take a ride that takes place in a haunted house setting, but make it enjoyable for anyone of any age. Like, kids won't be terrified of this. They'll have a good time with it. I've seen plenty of kids have a good time with it. I just love the way that it starts out with like this kind of like creepy, like somber tone, but then later on becomes more fun, like seeing these ghosts all happy, like, which is why they're called the 999 happy haunts. They just love what they're doing. It really shows. The effects are also really cool, like the Pepper's ghost effect, like in that dining room scene. I know how it works, but it still blows my mind every time. And I also love the hitchhiking ghost scene. That looks really cool with like, and it's just so fun. It's just so hilarious to see a ghost just riding in a doom buggy with you. While the ride itself is top notch, the stuff that happens before you get on the ride is just as amazing. Like that stretching room scene where you see all these normal portraits, and then as the room starts stretching, they start to have more of a darker tone to them. Just this one scene alone is worth waiting in line for. It is that good. There is one thing in the ride that I think really needs an update though, and that is the bride. Now, the bride itself is cool, but the way it looks just, oh my god, it looks really bad. She has a projected on face, and it just doesn't look right. Like, of all things that need an update, that one really needs one. And I don't know why they haven't done one yet. And as for Haunted Mansion Holiday, it's good, but nowhere near as good as the original thing. Also, it annoys me that they have it open during Halloween, even though it is clearly a Christmas ride. Hell, even the movie itself is a Christmas movie. Like, I don't know where people get this idea that it's a Halloween movie. Like, it takes place after Halloween. It's about them celebrating Christmas. Just like, yeah, definitely not a Halloween movie. And I don't know why they have Haunted Mansion Holiday open during Halloween and instead of an actual haunted ride for Halloween. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Well, I finally get to talk about the other Toontown ride, Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. Now, much like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, this is just insane and has a cartoonish feeling to it. And I mean that in a really, really good way. You ride around in a spinning vehicle and there's just so much going on. Like, you can't even really tell what's really happening because everything just comes at you in the blink of an eye. And that's just what makes it so much fun. It's very fast paced and really feels like you're in a cartoon. I especially love the portable hole scene, another neat effect that just still blows my mind to this day. The queue is also very well detailed. Like, this is a ride that I don't mind waiting a long time for because there's just so much to look at in line. It is definitely the better of the two rides in Toontown, but let's see if Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway can top it. I doubt it though. Time to talk about a Star Wars ride, and which one first? Smugglers Run. Just like Buzz Lightyear, this is an interactive ride. In this one, you get to fly the Millennium Falcon. You have to help Hondo Ohnaka to collect some coaxium. Each rider gets one of three positions when they experience this. There's the pilot position, where you make the ship go either left or right or up and down. And then there's Gunner, where you shoot at anything that gets in your way. And then there's Engineer, where you push a bunch of buttons and fix the ship. If I'm being honest, my favorite is the Engineer position because you barely get to do anything and only have to just quickly press buttons that light up but still get to look at the ride most of the time. If you go into single rider line, this is the position you'll end up with most likely, but sometimes there's a chance where they mix it up. It just depends on the cast member. When you ride this ride, it really feels like you're flying the Millennium Falcon, though there are certain things that could affect your enjoyment of the experience. There could be some, you could ride with some random guests that doesn't know what they're doing, and like sometimes they could like crash into random things or just not shoot things, or sometimes there's families who just don't do anything at all, and I've ridden with those types of people before. But I've seen kids who are really good pilots, admittedly. There's also a lot of interesting stuff before you get on the actual ride. Like the waiting room is very well detailed. I also really love that Hondo Onaga animatronic. He moves lifelike, except when he turns and it's obvious that he's on a turntable. But other than that, he's a really great animatronic. My biggest problem with the ride though is that it only contains one mission, and it kind of makes it lack rewritability. Now, I've ridden this ride many times. I think it's fun regardless of this, but it's just, I kind of want more variety. Like, I wish they would add like different areas to go to, and it's just the one area. And sometimes you end up in an asteroid field, but that doesn't always happen on every ride. But when it happens, it feels very special and it looks really cool. But yeah, I kind of wish it had more to it. But that doesn't diminish it in any way. I still think it is a lot of fun. If you've always wanted to fly the Millennium Falcon, this is the closest you'll get to it. I highly recommend it for anyone who plans on visiting the park in the future. I love the Disneyland Railroad. Now, I know technically this is meant for transportation, but it offers a lot more than that. Like, you get to see the different views, like the rivers of America, and then also that part with the Grand Canyon and the dinosaurs. And not a lot of people who ride this know what they're fully getting. Like, they don't expect to see like the Grand Canyon and dinosaurs. They just see it as a simple train ride. And when it does happen, it just surprises them, and that just really makes it special. It's also a ride that you don't have to exit. Like, they don't kick you off when you get to a stop. You get to ride it around as many times as you want, and that is great for someone who just wants to relax, who wants to like take a break from like riding any of the other rides. Honestly, that alone I should put it at number one, but of course there are rides that are better than this, but still, this is just so awesome. And I love it. I ride it every time. And honestly, it's just one that I would ride all day if I wanted to. It's just really good. So now we get to our next Star Wars ride, and that is Star Tours, The Adventures Continue. Now, you're probably wondering why I put this higher than Smugglers Run. Well, it's simply because it has more variety to it. Like, it has more rewritability. There are multiple adventures you can go on. It's hardly ever the same ride whenever you go on it. And each adventure is enjoyable. It's easy to nitpick the hell out of this. Like, there's a lot of fan service and there's quite a few plot holes. And if I'm being honest, the original version is kind of better. But this still is a lot of fun, and it just feels so intense, like you're actually flying in a ship. I especially like the animatronics in the queue, like that bag check robot. I could watch him all day. He's just so hilarious. It's a really great ride, but I still miss the Pee Wee Herman robot. At least he's doing really well as a DJ in the Galaxy's Edge Cantina.
Thank you for flying Star Tours. Bye-bye.
Yo ho, Pirates of the Caribbean. Another fan favorite ride, and deservingly so. It's amazing how this attraction that's over 50 years old still looks amazing to this day. Like, the animatronics still look really great, the sets still look very awesome, and that atmosphere at the beginning where you're going past the Blue Bayou restaurant, which I still haven't eaten yet, I should sometime. Like, that part it's just really cool, and I just love it. I really love the transition from dead pirates to living ones. It just feels so smooth. I love seeing that giant ship battle. It just feels so epic. This ride has a lot of iconic scenes, like that jail scene with the dog with the keys in its mouth. It's just so hilarious every time. The only issue I have, though, is the references to the movies. Now, I understand why they did it. The movies are popular, but it just doesn't feel right to have Johnny Depp animatronics in there. Like, he doesn't really add anything. He's clearly only there just so people could say, hey, I recognize that pirate from the movies. And like, it's kind of a shame that there are people out there who mostly associate this ride with the movies. Like, some people don't even know that the ride came before the movies, and that's kind of sad in my opinion. These references to the movies aren't terrible, but I will tell you one terrible update that actually has nothing to do with the movies. The way they changed the redhead scene is just atrocious.
Hey, send them hints to Davy Jones. It's the rumbly ones. Drink up me hearties. Yo-ho!
Pirates of the Caribbean is still really great. I ride it multiple times when I go. It is a must ride whenever you go to the park. Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Forbidden Eye is amazing in every possible way. It was clearly made by people who really love these movies and really wanted to do them justice. And it really shows. They really went all out with the details. Like the queue alone just really makes it feel like you're in a temple. Like there's booby traps and spikes and like hieroglyphics. My God, man, it really feels like you're in an Indiana Jones movie. Once you get on the ride, that's where things start to get intense. You go on this crazy adventure with Indiana Jones where you see a bunch of bugs and snakes, rats, and there's arrows shooting at you, and there's fire, and it ends with you almost getting run over by a boulder, and all of it just looks amazing. Like, the effects are just so cool. Like, man, it still looks amazing to this day. Now, there are some effects that don't really work well anymore. Like, that door effect is completely different now. Like, it used to be, like, the walls would shift, so it would make you look like you're going through a different door each time, even though every ride-through is just the same door. But now it's replaced with projections, and that doesn't look as amazing. That doesn't look as impressive. I'm not sure if it's something that can be fixed, but maybe they'll fix it eventually. Who knows? My favorite effect on the ride is the boulder scene. Like the way that it looks and feels like the vehicle is going backwards, even though it's not. Man, it just blows my mind every time. It just looks so convincing. Indiana Jones Adventure is easily one of the most impressive rides Disneyland has ever opened. This next ride has been a favorite of mine for a very long time, though not anymore because it's only at number 2, but it's still amazing nonetheless, and that is Space Mountain. This was the first roller coaster I've ever been on, and I fell in love with it when I first rode it. Like, it's a dark roller coaster, but it really feels like you're in space. Like, there's a bunch of lights and projections. It just looks so amazing. When that countdown starts, I get really pumped. It makes me excited for what's about to happen. And who can forget that epic Michael Giacchino soundtrack? Like, this is some of his best work. Like, I'm a huge Michael Giacchino fan, and just hearing this music, it just gives me so much joy. Since it's in the dark, you can't really see what's going on, so each turn and drop is pretty much a surprise, and that just makes it all the more fun. Well, that leaves us with number 1, the absolute best ride in the Disneyland park. One that blows all the other rides out of the water. One that I don't think will ever be topped in the distant future. And that ride is Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. This is one of the best things I've ever experienced. As a huge Star Wars fan and a huge Disney Parks fan, I have a very high appreciation for the amount of work that went into this. Like, it just looks so complicated, like so detailed. It's just, oh my God, from a technical aspect, it just looks beautiful. Like the animatronics move fluidly, and like the effects, like, oh my God, like, the trackless ride technology, man, this is so good. This is so good. This ride has such an intense feeling. Like, you get kidnapped by the First Order, so the Resistance has to break you out, and you're riding a transport through the Star Destroyer, and like get shot down by stormtroopers. You come across AT-ATs, and you get chased by Kylo Ren. You see these giant blasters, and you have to like make your way through them. And then like you enter this escape pod, and like it drops you down, and then and then you start flying to like to the planet of Batuu. Oh my God. Okay. My God. There's just a lot to process here. It's just like, it is definitely something that you have to experience in person for yourself. Like, even the queue is amazing. Like the pre-show stuff, just like, my God, it just looks really amazing. Like that hologram Rey, like this is the only time Rey appears in the whole attraction, but this one appearance, it's just really cool how they do this whole hologram, and the BB-8 animatronic, and then you enter this giant shuttle and it moves, and you enter through one set of doors and then exit through those same set of doors, and a really cool effect. And then you enter this the Star Destroyer hangar, and just so massive, and the stormtroopers, oh my god. And also the cast members just really sell it. Like they give like these acting performances, making it really feel like they're either part of the Resistance or the First Order. Man, like they really put a lot of effort into this. They really thought everything through. It is just so amazing. Like honestly, the only disappointing thing is the fact that it ends and you can't go on it again that same day because of the boarding group. And I understand why the boarding group is there, because like a lot of people really want to ride it. It's very popular. A line would be really long without it. And yeah, so I understand that, but this is one that I just feel depressed whenever I get off of it, because it just leaves me so mind blown, and I don't know, it's really good. This is such a great ride. I mean, wow. Whenever the park reopens, you definitely have to ride it. It's something that you have to be at rope drop to try to have a chance of riding it, to get a boarding group. But it is well worth it every time. I just love it so much. And that concludes this ranking of every Disneyland ride. And this was really fun to talk about because these rides are just so creative, and Disneyland has come a long way, and they just feel so special, and they just can't be matched. No matter how good or bad, it's clear that these have a lot of effort put into them, and the Imagineers should really be praised for the amount of hard work they put into making this park magical.